You know, there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about because it comes up so often in this community, and it's one of those things that sounds helpful on the surface, but actually for a lot of people, it creates the exact opposite of what they want. And that is the idea of acting as if. Now, you've probably heard people say that in order to be in the state of your wish fulfilled and to manifest what you want, you need to ask yourself things like, if I were already the person I desire to be, how would I think? How would I feel? How would I act? What would I see? What would I hear? What would I smell and taste and touch? What would I do differently? And for some people, that lands beautifully. It clicks. It feels empowering. But for many people, and this is what I want to explore with you today, that question actually keeps the desired experience feeling far away. Because the moment you ask, if I were this person, you reinforce the idea that you're not that person yet. That the version of you who has what you want is floating out there somewhere. And you're here, separate from it, trying to reach it. And that isn't the way to do this, because you're always projecting out the story that you know is true right now. And so if you're assuming that you're not in the correct reality yet, then you will continue to create the experience that you're not in the correct reality yet, and that something needs to happen first in order for you to move into the reality where you get to have what you want. And so today, I want to talk to you about how to do this in a way that feels so much cleaner, so much more truthful, and so much more aligned with how this actually works. Something that removes the sense of distance, removes the sense of effort, and brings you back into the state of already being, already having, already living in the reality that you desire to be living in. And so the way to do it is this. Instead of asking, how would I feel if I had already reached my desired outcome? I like to ask, if I knew that I am being who I want to be, and everything that I want is already unfolding right now, what would I do? How would I spend my time? How would I live life? How would I operate as I go through my day? Not as if, not as a performance, not as a mental exercise, but from the knowing that this is actually happening, that this really is what's unfolding. There's a huge difference between imagining what you would do if it were true and moving through your day from the knowing that it is true. And when you really feel the difference between those two states, it changes everything. Because acting as if still has this feeling of pretending. Even if you're trying to make it feel real, the phrase itself sets up this dynamic of, this isn't real yet, but I'll pretend it is so that maybe one day it will be. Whereas acting from knowing that you are already in your desired reality is the exact opposite. It assumes that you're already on the right path, where fulfillment is already laid out ahead of you. It assumes that what you desire is already unfolding. It assumes that the version of you that you want to inhabit isn't some distant reality, it's the reality that you're already living right now. And when you live from that state, everything in your life starts shifting in response. Your actions change, not because you're trying to make something happen, but because you're no longer living from worry, from doubt, from fear, or from urgency. Your energy changes, not because you force yourself into a high vibe, but because knowing that you're on the right path gives you a very different feeling. Your perspective changes, not because you're trying to align your thoughts, but because you naturally start seeing everything that's happening as part of the unfolding. And the ironic thing is, once you start living from that knowing, the external world begins reorganizing itself very quickly. Not because you're doing something to make it happen, but because you're no longer unconsciously assuming the opposite. Now, the key piece in all of this, the thing that actually makes this work, is the question, If I knew that everything I desire is already unfolding, how would I spend my time? And I really want you to sit with this, because when I say how would I spend my time, I am not asking what would I do if I already had the thing. I'm not asking what would your day look like once it's fully manifested, or what would you do if you already had the relationship, or what would you do if your body was already completely healed. That's not it. What I'm asking is, what would I do right now, today, with the physical ability and situation that I'm currently in, if I knew that everything I want is already in motion, and therefore I can relax because I don't need to change anything or make anything happen, since it's all already done and it's all already laid out for me. That is the key. It's not what would I do once I have the outcome, it's what would I do if the outcome was guaranteed, and therefore I don't need to worry or solve or push or micromanage, none of that. Think about how different those two questions feel. One is future-based, while the other is now-based. One is conditional, while the other is unconditional. One reinforces lack, while the other reinforces fulfillment. One keeps you waiting, while the other one allows you to live the life you want to be living right now. And the thing is, this is the part people underestimate. When you ask the wrong question, you get the wrong actions. You get actions that come from trying to move into a reality you believe you aren't in yet. But when you ask the right question, your actions naturally shift into being an expression of trust, of ease, of allowing, of inner alignment. And that is the state that actually moves mountains. Let me give you an example. Let's say your desire is to manifest improved health. And you hear someone say, act as if. And so you think, okay, if I were already perfectly healthy, I'd be hiking 5 miles a day. I'd be going to the gym. I'd be doing all these physical things. So now you're trying to push your current body, your body that might be in recovery or in pain or needing gentleness, into actions that you're not actually physically capable of at this moment. And then you feel like you're failing. You feel like you're not embodying the state. You feel like you're doing it wrong. And that's not the point at all. Instead, I want you to imagine something much simpler, much gentler, much more aligned. If I knew I was healing, if I knew that my body is already shifting to the version I want, if I knew the outcome was guaranteed, what would I do right now in the body I currently have? Not in the body you will have, not in some future version of yourself, right now, in your actual lived experience. For some people, the answer might be, I would have a rest without feeling guilty about it. I would make myself a nice cup of tea. I would read something that makes me feel peaceful. I would take a slow walk if that feels good. I would give myself permission to not pressure my body to do anything it's not ready for. I would stop Googling symptoms and trust the process. And here's the beautiful thing. Those actions are exactly what it means to live from the state of your wish fulfilled. Not because they mimic the physical outcome, but because they express the inner knowing that everything is already unfolding perfectly. When you know something is unfolding, you stop forcing, you stop trying to control, you stop rushing, you stop checking the mirror every 5 minutes to see whether anything's changed. You relax. You let yourself breathe again. And that is the exact state that allows everything to fall into place very smoothly and easily. So let's zoom out even more. I want you to consider something. There is a huge difference between an experience you choose and an experience that feels like it's being forced on you. Let's imagine there are two people out in the cold. One person is homeless and is stuck outside with no shelter, freezing, miserable, feeling powerless and trapped. And then there's another person who has chosen to go mountain climbing, wading through the snow. also freezing, but the experience feels completely different. One is suffering, the other is alive. Same physical sensation, same cold, same numb hands, same icy air, but the inner experience is completely different. Why? Because one person sees it as an unwanted situation that they have no control over, and the other sees it as part of an adventure that they chose. And that is exactly how manifesting works. Your physical situation isn't the deciding factor of your experience. Your assumption about it is. If you assume that what you're living right now is something unwanted that the universe is imposing on you, it feels heavy, it feels unfair, it feels hopeless, it feels discouraging. But if you assume that what you're living right now is part of the adventure that you chose, part of the unfolding, part of the path that is leading you exactly where you want to go, then it becomes something completely different. Not because the symptoms or the unwanted situation magically disappears right this instant, but because your relationship to it changes. And that change in relationship is everything. When you see your current reality as unwanted, you resist it, you push against it, you tighten your chest, you tense your body, you mentally fight the moment you're in. But when you see your current reality as a chosen adventure, something that is happening for you, something that is leading you where you want to go, something that is shaping you in ways that you want to be shaped, everything starts to feel very different. And the thing that people don't realize is that this shift in assumption doesn't just make you feel better, it directly affects what unfolds next. Because everything in your physical world is forming itself according to your assumption. If you assume this is a disaster, you will experience it as a disaster. If you assume this is the beginning of your transformation, then that is what you will experience. If you assume this is an unwanted setback, then reality will continue reflecting that this is what it is. Whereas if you assume that this is a bridge of incidents that is leading you exactly where you want to go, then the world will rearrange itself into exactly that. This is the entire game. Not forcing perfect thoughts, not forcing positive thinking, not trying to be enlightened, not pretending your situation is different to what it is. Just this, assuming that what you desire is already unfolding and allowing your actions to express the knowing that this is true. And that's why the question, how would I spend my time if I knew that everything that I want is already unfolding, is completely different from how would I spend my time if what I want had already manifested. The first one brings you back into now. The second one pulls you into the future. One is about knowing, the other is about pretending. One is accessible, the other is imaginary. One means that you are naturally in the state of your wish fulfilled. The other keeps you trying to get there. Now let's explore what this looks like in everyday life. Let's say your desire is for financial abundance. If you ask the question the usual way, what would I do after I have the money? Your mind might say, well, I'd be traveling, I'd be buying new things, I'd be doing all these expensive things. But maybe right now, that's not physically possible. Maybe your current situation doesn't allow you to do those activities yet. So now you feel lack, you feel the distance, you feel the gap between where you are and where you think you should be. But if you ask, if I knew that the money was already unfolding, how would I spend my time today? You might say, well, I'd stop stressing every second about money. I'd let myself do something I actually enjoy doing. I'd still do my budgeting, but without panicking about it. I'd allow myself to rest instead of constantly worrying. I'd live life calmly, knowing that I'm being taken care of and that I will always be provided with everything I want and need. I'd make decisions from a place of trust instead of a place of fear. And here's the magic. Those actions are the state of a financial abundance. Not because they mimic some wealthy lifestyle, but because they express the inner assumption of security. And the assumption is what creates the reality. Here's another example. Let's say your desire is a relationship. If you ask, what would I do if I were already in my ideal relationship, your mind might go to date nights, to cuddling on the sofa, to traveling together. But those things are not something you can do alone right now. So again, it keeps the fulfillment of your desire out in the future. But if you ask, if I knew love was already unfolding, how would I live today? And you might find yourself saying things like, well, I'd stop anxiously scanning for signs. I'd stop thinking something is wrong with me. I would let myself enjoy my own company. I would take better care of myself. I would allow life to feel full right now instead of waiting for someone to come and complete it. I'd relax into the knowing that I'm not missing anything. And those actions are what it means to live from the state of your wish fulfilled. Because they're not coming from trying to get the relationship. They're coming from the knowing that you're on the path where it's already unfolding. And that where you are right now is part of the story of you experiencing the unfolding of this beautiful relationship. Let's deepen this even more. Most people think manifesting is about visualization or affirmations or techniques. But the real shift happens when you change your assumption. Your assumption influences everything. It changes how you see yourself. It changes how you interpret events. It changes how you respond to challenges. It changes the meaning you give to the moment you're in. And meaning is powerful. Meaning is creative. If you wake up with pain in your body, the meaning of the pain in itself is neutral. But the meaning you give it determines your entire internal state. If you think, oh no, I'm getting worse, you tighten, you panic, you assume the worst, you feel defeated. But if you think, this is just a sensation, my body is in motion, something is shifting, this is part of my healing, the exact same physical sensation suddenly feels completely different. Not because the pain changed, but because the perspective did. That shift in meaning is what frees you. And once the meaning shifts, your actions shift naturally. You no longer act from fear. You no longer act from desperation. You no longer act from urgency. You no longer act from needing to fix something. Instead, you act from knowing, from trust, from calmness, from alignment. And life responds to that effortlessly. Here's something important to remember. Living from the end doesn't mean pretending everything is perfect. It doesn't mean ignoring symptoms. It doesn't mean denying your reality. It doesn't mean forcing yourself to feel good. It doesn't mean suppressing fear. It doesn't mean pretending to be someone you're not. True living from the end is quiet, it's gentle, it's grounded, it's simple. It's not a performance, it's not a technique, it's not something you do, it's something you know. And that knowing shapes your behavior in ways that are very practical and very here and now. So let's bring all of this together. If you knew you were becoming the person you want to be, if you knew your desires were already unfolding, if you knew nothing could stop them, if you knew every challenge was part of the story you chose, if you knew there was nothing to fix, if you knew that the universe isn't making you suffer but that everything is always working in your favor, if you knew the unfolding is already in motion, how would you move through today? Not what would you do if the desire was physically here, but what would you do if you knew the desire was guaranteed and therefore you could relax? What would you choose for yourself? How would you treat yourself? What would you stop worrying about? Where would you loosen your grip? Where would you stop pushing? Where would you allow life to be easier? That is the state of the wish fulfilled. Not pretending, not forcing, not acting as if, just knowing and letting your actions be the natural, effortless expression of that knowing. That's the shift. That's the magic, and that's what changes everything. Okay, now before I go, I just want to quickly remind you that the price of the Up Club is going up soon. So for those who don't know, the Up Club is my membership where I coach you privately, one-to-one, through Zoom meetings if the time zones work, or else through text chat or email coaching if that works better. So if that's something you're interested in, you have a few more days to go before the price goes up. And if you sign up now, you will lock in at the current price for as long as you remain a member. So if you'd like to have a look at the details for that, you can find the link in the description. And on that note, that is it from me for today. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.